So, hello, how are you all? I hope you are all fine. So, today my target is to read 20 pages of each The Richest Man in Babylon. So, starting with our prosperity as a nation depend upon the personal financial prosperity of each of us as individual. This book deals with the personal success of each of us. Success means accomplishment as a result of our own efforts and ability. Proper preparation is the key to our success. Our act can be no wiser than our thought. Our thinking can be no wiser than our understanding. These books of cures for lean pursuits has been termed a guide to a financial understanding. That indeed is its purpose to offer those who are ambitious for financial success an insight which will aid them to acquire money, to keep money, and to make their surpluses earn more money. In the page which follow, we are taken back to Babylon, the cradle in which was nurtured the basic principle of finance, now recognized and used the world over. To new readers, the author is happy to extend the wish that its page may contain for them the same inspirations for growing bank account, greater financial success, and the solutions to difficult personal financial problems so enthusiastically reported by readers from coast to coast. To the business executives who have distributed these tales in such generous quantities to friends, relatives, employees, and associates, the author takes this opportunity to express his gratitude. No endorsement could be higher than that of participants men who appreciate its teachings because they themselves have worked up to important success by applying the very principles it advocates. Babylon became the wealthiest city of the ancient world because its citizens were the richest people of their time. They appreciated the value of money. They appreciated sound financial principles in acquiring money, keeping money and making their money earn more money they provided for themselves that what we all desire incomes for the future. So starting with a historical sketch of Babylon. In the page of history, there lives no city more glamorous than Babylon. Its very name conjures vision of wealth and splendor. Its treasures of gold and jewels were fabulous. One naturally pictures such as wealthy city as located in a suitable setting of tropical luxury, surrounded by rich natural resources of forests and mines. Such was not the case. It was located beside the Euphrates River in a flat, arid valley. It had no forests, no mines, not even stone for building. It was not even located upon a natural trade road. The rainfall was insufficient to raise crops. Babylon is an outstanding example of man's ability to achieve great objectives using whatever means are at his disposal. All of the resources supporting this large city were man developed. All of its riches were man made. Babylon possessed just two natural resources fertile soil and water in the river, with one of the greatest engineering accomplishments of this or any other day. Babylonian engineers diverted the water from the river by means of dams and immense irrigation canals far out across that arid valley when these canals to pour the life-giving water over the fertile soil. This ranks among the first engineer feats known to history. Such abundant crops as well as the reward of this irrigation system the world has never seen before. Fortunately, during its long existence, Babylon was ruled by successive lines of kings to whom conquest and plunder were built incidental. While it engaged in many wars, most of these were located or defensive against ambitious conquerors from other countries who coveted the fabulous treasures of Babylon. The outstanding rules of Babylon live in history because of their wisdom, enterprise, and justice. Babylon produced no starting monarch who sought to conquer the known world, that old nation might pay homage to their egoism. As a city, Babylon exists no more. When those energizing human forces that built and maintained the city for thousands of years were withdrawn, it soon became a deserted ruin. The site of the city is in Asia, about 600 miles east of the Suez Canal, just north of the Persian Gulf. The latitude is about 30 degrees above the equator, practically the same as the of Yuma, Arizona. It possesses a climate similar to that of this American city, hot and dry. Today, this valley of Euphrates, once a populous irrigated farming district, is again a wind-swept arid waste. Scant grass and desert strip for existence against the window-blown sand. Gone are the fertile fields, the mammoth cities, and the long caravans of rich merchandise. Nomadic bands of Arabs, securing a scant living by tending small herds, are the only inhabitants. Such it has been since about the beginning of the Christian era. Dotting this valley are the Arden Hills. For centuries they were considered by travelers to be nothing else. The attention of archaeologists was finally attracted to them because of broken piece of pottery and bricks washed down by the occasional rainstorms. Expeditions financed by European and American museums were sent here to excavate and see what could be found. Picks and shovels soon proved these hills to be ancient cities. City graves they might be well be called. Babylon was one of these. Over it for something like 20 centuries, the wind had settled the desert dust. Built originally of bricks, all exposed walls has disintegrated and gone back to earth once more. Such in Babylon, the wealthy city today, a heap of dirt so long abandoned that no living person even knew its name until it was discovered by carefully removing the refuse of centuries from the streets and the fallen brick age of its noble temples and places. Many scientists consider the civilizations of Babylon and other cities in this valley to be the oldest of which there is a definite record. Positive dates have been proved reaching back 8,000 years. An interesting fact in these connections is the means used to determine these dates. Uncovered in the ruins of Babylon were descriptions of an eclipse of the sun. Modern astronomers readily computed the time when such an eclipse visible in Babylon occurred and thus established a new relationship between their calendar and our own. In this way, we have proof that 8,000 years ago, the Sumerians who inhabited Babylonia were living in walled city. One can only conjecture for how many centuries previous such city had existed. Their inhabitants were not mere barbarians living within protecting walls. They were educated and enlightened people. So far as written history goes, they were the first engineers, the first astronomer, the first mathematician, the first financier, and the first people to have a written language. Mentions had already been made of the irrigation system, which transformed the arid valley into an agriculture paradise. The remains of these canals can still be traced, although they are mostly filled with an accumulated sand. Some of them were of such size that when empty of water, a dozen horses could be ridden a breeze along their bottoms. In size, they compare favorably to the largest canal in the Colorado and Uth. In addition to the irrigating the valley lands, the Babylonian engineers completed another project of similar magnitude by means of an elaborate drainage system. They reclaimed an immense area of swampland and the moats of an Euphrates and the Tiger Reserve and put this also under cultivations. Herodotus, the Greek traveler and historian, visited Babylon while it was in its prime and has given us the only known description by an outsider. His writing gives a graphic description of the city and some of the unusual customs of its people. He mentions the remarkable fertility of the soil and the bountiful harvest of wheat and barley which they produce. The glory of Babylon has faded, but its wisdom has been preserved for us. For this we are indebted to their form of records. In that distant day, the use of paper had not been invented. Instead, they laboriously engraved their writing upon tables of moist clay. When completed, these were backed and become hard title. In size, They were about 6 by 8 inches and in inches in thickness. These clay tables, as they are commonly called, were used much as we use modern forms of writing. Upon them were engraved legends, poetry, history, transcriptions of royal decrees, the law of the land, title to the property, promissory notes, and even letters which were dispatched by messengers to distant cities. From these clay tables, we are permitted an insight into the intimate personal affairs of the people. For example, one tablet, evidently from the record of a country storekeeper, related that upon the given date, a certain name of wheat, 3 begin delivered at a time and the other 4 to wait the customer pleasure. Safely buried in the Greek cities, archaeologists have recovered entire libraries of these tables, hundreds of thousands of them. One of the outstanding wonders of Babylon was the immense walls surrounding the city. The ancient drawing them with the Great Pyramid of Egypt as belonging to the 7 wonders of the world. Queen Semiramis is credited with having erected the first wall during the early history of the city. Modern excavators have been unable to find any trace of the original walls, nor is their exact height known. From mention made by early writers, it is estimated they were about 50 to 60 feet high, faced on the outer side with burnt bricks and further protected by a deep moat of water. The later and more famous wall were started about 600 years before the time of Greece by King Nabopolassar. Upon such a gigantic scale did he plan the rebuilding. He did not live to see the work finished. This was left to his son Nebuchadnezzar, whose name is familiar in biblical history. The height and length of this latter was stagger belief. They are reported upon reliable authority to have been about 160 feet high, the equivalent of the height of a modern 15-story office building. Total length is estimated as between 9 and 11 miles. So wide was the top that a 6-horse chariot could be driven around them. Of this tremendous structure, little now remained except portions of the foundations and the moat. In addition to the ravages of the element, the Arabs completed the destruction by quarrying the bricks for building purpose elsewhere. Against the walls of Babylon marched, in turn, the victorious armies of almost every conqueror of that age of wars of conquest. A host of kings laid siege to Babylon, but always in vain. Invading armies of that day were not to be considered lightly. Historians speak of such units as 10,000 horsemen, 25,000 chariots, 1,200 regiments of foot soldiers with 1,000 men to the regiment. Often 2 or 3 years of preparation would be required to assemble war materials and depots of food along the proposed line of march. The city of Babylon was organized much like a modern city. There were streets and shops. Peddlers offered their wares through residential district. Priests officiated in magnificent temple. Within the city was an inner enclosure for the royal palaces. The walls about this were said to have been higher than those about the city. The Babylonians were skilled in the art. This included sculpture, painting, weaving, gold working, and the manufacture of metal weapons and agricultural implements. Their jewelries created most artistic jewelry. Many samples have been recovered from the grave of its wealthy citizens and are now on exhibitions in the leading museum of the world. At a very early period, when the rest of the world was still hacking as the tree with stone-headed axes, or hunting and fighting with flint-pointed spears and arrows, the Babylonians were using axes, spears, and arrows with metal heads. The Babylonians were clever financier and trader. So far as we know, they were the original inventor of money as a means of exchange of promissory note and written titles to property. Babylon was never entered by holistic armies until about 540 years before the birth of Christ. Even then, the walls were not captured. The story of the fall of Babylon is most unusual. Cyrus, one of the great conquerors of that period, intended to attack the city and hoped to take its impregnable walls. Advisor of Nabonidus, the king of Babylon, persuaded him to go forth to meet Cyrus and give him battle without waiting for the city to be besieged. In the succeeding defeat to the Babylonian army, it fell away from the city. Cyrus thereupon entered the open gates and took the possession without resistance. Thereafter, the power of the prestige of the city gradually waned until in the course of few hundred years it was eventually abandoned, deserted, left for the winds and storms to level once again to that desert earth from which its grandeur had originally been built. Babylon had fallen, never to rise again, but to its civilization owes much. The eons of time have crumbled to dust the broad walls of its temples, but the wisdom of Babylon endures. Money is the medium by which earthly success is measured. Money makes possible the enjoyment of the best the earth affords. Money is plentiful for those who understand the simple laws which govern its acquisitions. Money is governed today by the same laws which control it when prosperous men thronged the streets of Babylon 6,000 years ago.